Hello everyone, I'm John Long and I'm a boomer. I've got 50 years of experience working with tools as a carpenter, a cabinet maker, and a contractor, and I think I know a thing or two about tools. In this video, I'm going to discuss the Masterforce belt drive 30-gallon portable air compressor. This is the first of two videos I'm doing on the compressor because I wanted to keep each video short enough that you wouldn't fall asleep and spill your bowl of Fruit Loops. In this first video, I'm going to cover how to select a compressor, the difference between an oil-free and a belt-driven compressor, compressor safety rules, and installation. In the second video, I'm going to cover startup, operation, maintenance, what do I think, and of course, optional accessories. Before I get into selecting an air compressor, there are a couple of cautions that I should give you. First, portable air compressors are basically throwaway tools. That means that if they break down after the warranty period ends, it's almost impossible to find spare parts for them. And when you can find them, they're so expensive it's not worth the time and money. That means that you really have to pay attention to the warranty. A couple of years ago, I bought a compressor to replace an expensive one that was leaking air. I had tried to buy the repair part for it, but because it was out of warranty, I couldn't get any answers out of the factory. I went back to the store where I bought it, and they said they couldn't get any answers from them either. Out of luck. That's when I learned that these compressors are actually throwaway tools. Second, there are only so many factories in the world making these things, so there aren't going to be any big differences in quality from one brand to another, just different paint and a different combination of hardware. I bought this Masterforce compressor for under $600 and it's got a 3-year warranty. Or I could have bought an identical DeWalt compressor with yellow paint on it for over $1,000 with a 2-year warranty. If you're thinking about buying a new air compressor, the first step is to identify your needs. You have to visualize what you want it for. We're going to limit this discussion to so-called portable air compressors and leave out the larger stationary units. Look at the following chart and pick out the items that you want to use the compressor for. The chart will tell you what compressors are recommended for you. What the chart does is identify the tasks and estimate the air supply needed, and then adds 1/2. In other words, if your heaviest use will require 90 psi, they'll show you a compressor that is rated for 140 psi or a little more. And if you need 3 cubic feet per minute, it'll show you compressors that'll put out 4.5 cubic feet per minute. In other words, they add a margin of about 50%. I should mention that I use a FlexZilla blowgun that blows a lot of air, like over 30 CFM for short periods. It was my biggest user of compressed air, and it doesn't even show up in the charts. And that's another reason why I wanted the largest tank I could get. In my case, I knew I'd be using an air stapler and brad nailer, an air nailer, an air hammer, an impact wrench, and my fancy FlexZilla. And now to refine the choices. What's best, an oil-free compressor or a belt drive compressor? There are two general types of compressors. One is the oil-free direct drive compressor and the other is belt drive. Oil-free compressors run at a higher speed than belt-driven compressors, and they're noisier and they vibrate more. They have a shorter lifespan and they're quite a bit cheaper than belt-driven compressors. Here's a typical oil-free compressor. Most notable thing about it is that the air compressing cylinders are attached directly to the motor so that they spin at the same speed as the motor. And they're made out of cast aluminum. They have all the same hardware as a belt-driven compressor. They've got your 2 gauges, a regulator, 2 air outlets, an overpressure relief valve, and underneath there's a very nice tank drain plug. That's really kind of a good one. It's a ball valve and it's readily accessible. It makes it usable. Because there's no oil reservoir, you can either leave the unit flat in a horizontal position or you can store it upright. It can only be run in the horizontal position though. There's one more advantage to being an oil-free unit. You can't pump any oil into the air. And that's critical if you're planning on using the unit as an air source for a respirator in a spray booth. And here's the 30-gallon belt-driven compressor that I actually bought. Of course, the most notable thing about it is the 30-gallon tank. It has a separate 2-cylinder cast iron compressor with a lubricating oil reservoir and a flywheel that's built kind of like a gas engine. The flywheel is driven by a belt connected to a standalone motor, and it gears down the speed of the compressor about 3 to 1, so it's running slower and producing less vibration and noise. There's a sight glass so you can easily check to see if there's oil in the reservoir. There's an overpressure relief valve and an on-off switch. At the bottom of the tank there's a drain valve that's a pain to use, so I intend to replace it with a ball valve on an extension. There are 2 gauges, one that shows the pressure inside the tank and the second shows the pressure being delivered to the hose. For some reason, my compressor only has one air outlet, but I haven't found that to be a problem since the outlet goes to a hose reel. I knew that I was going to be leaving this thing plugged in all the time and I would be using it a lot, so I chose this model because it has a 75% duty cycle rating. I've never been able to find any duty cycle ratings for any of the oil-free compressors. And this unit puts out 5.5 cubic feet per minute at 90 psi, which is just plenty for my needs. The choice of a 30-gallon tank was kind of a no-brainer also. I was going to be using it in my garage and I knew I didn't want a stationary unit because it would take up too much space. And I still wanted it to be portable enough to be able to take it out to the shed if I would need it out there. I noticed that the compressor has a big sticker on it that says assembled in the USA, but I also note that the motor, and I'm sure other parts, are made in China. I ended up choosing this unit instead of an oil-free compressor because I know that the belt drive compressor will last longer and it'll make less noise than an oil-free unit despite their advertising as being low noise. Also, like all Masterforce compressors, it has a 3-year warranty instead of the other brands being 1 or 2 years. And, of course, price. So here it is. Actually, this isn't the original, this is the second one. The first one I bought, I had it for 2 days before somebody cut the lock on my tool trailer and helped themselves to it. So this is the replacement. There are a number of safety issues that come into play here. First, this is a large tank of highly compressed air. Don't do anything stupid that's going to cause a release of air where you don't want it. 150 pounds of pressure will blow objects clear across the room. It can raise particles that will go in your eyes or in your lungs. It's a good idea to wear safety glasses whenever you're releasing compressed air. If you're blowing dust with it, wear a mask too. Next, you can't tell for sure when this unit might switch on, so keep your hands and fingers away from any moving parts unless the unit is unplugged. Don't try to adjust the automatic shutoff switch, and don't spray flammable liquids in an enclosed space. Sparks from the starter circuit can cause an explosion. Don't use the compressor outdoors on a rainy day, and don't use it on a wet surface. You can get a shock. And finally, don't modify the compressor in any way by drilling, grinding, or welding. There's really nothing to installing the unit. It comes with a full load of oil, and all you have to do is look at the sight glass to make sure that you can see liquid. The other thing is, check the fasteners on the wire cage around the flywheel. Some of those get loose once in a while and you can hear a lot of rattling from it. Position the compressor near an outlet and then make sure that it doesn't wobble. Wobbling is not a big deal, it's just that it allows more vibration and noise. Now it's common for these things to wobble because they're supported on 4 points, 2 wheels and the front pads. If it does have a wobble, then slip some sheet metal underneath the one pad that's not touching properly. Now is a good time to test the outlet and make sure that your neutral and ground are wired properly. You can do that by using a common circuit tester. It's never a good idea to use an extension cord for any appliance. If you have to use one, then I suggest that you get a heavy gauge appliance extension cord. I'm running my compressor on the standard 115 volt circuit on a 20 amp breaker. You can also rewire the motor to run on 240 volts. The full load amperage rating for this is 15 amps, so technically you can run this on a 15 amp circuit, but you better not have anything else running on that circuit or you'll just trip it constantly. And another caution for you. If you're going to run this on a 15 amp circuit with a 15 amp circuit breaker, if that circuit breaker has ever been tripped from an overload, it will try to trip constantly at a full load of 15 amps. And that's it for part 1 of this video. In part 2, I'm going to cover startup, operation, maintenance, what do I think, and of course, optional accessories. If you found this video to be of any interest or of any use, don't forget the like and subscribe buttons. Thank you for watching. And that, my friends, is a thing or two about the Masterforce 30-gallon belt drive compressor. Good day.